Humanitarian disasters unfolding in Afghanistan 4 months after the last U.S. troops left the country and the Taliban regained control. Sanctions, frozen aid, the pandemic, and now massive drought have made hunger endemic across the country. Afghanistan, ranking #1 on the International Rescue Committee's recently released 2022 emergency watch list, and the UN warning that as many as 1 million children could die this winter. Our senior foreign correspondent, Pannell, has the latest from Kabul, and we want to warn you this report shows scenes some may find upsetting.
This morning, in Taliban-run Afghanistan, a humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding. 4 months since they seized power, the militants are struggling to control the growing ISIS insurgency and to feed their own people. It's difficult viewing, but their lives may rely on the world not turning away. We visited the country's only dedicated children's hospital, where many are struggling to simply stay alive. Mohammed Chakri is 2 years old. He weighs just 11 pounds, less than half the average 2-year-old boy in America. His mum can't get the tests he needs or the medicine that might keep him alive. They have no money.
You can see how listless he is.
Mohammed isn't alone. The UN warning as many as 1 million children could die from starvation this winter, far more than died in the war. We're also human, hospital director Dr. Wardak says. We want our children to have the same kind of health as children in the rest of the world. This is one reason aid and assets have been frozen, the Taliban's treatment of women and girls. What you're watching is illegal in Afghanistan now. Teenage girls attending a secret school.
This truly is incredible to witness. There are about a dozen girls in this room who are risking everything just to get an education.
This school defies the Taliban's ban on education for girls, but for this student, her future makes the risk necessary.
Why do you come?
But I want to become a good doctor in the future, and I want to continue my education.
Oh, the voice of courage there. What remarkable scenes. Pannell joins us live now from Kabul for more. Great to see you there again on the ground. So, tell me about daily life for Afghans. You know, we're looking at this crisis. Many who were already struggling before the U.S. and NATO withdrawal. Now, what are they facing?
Yeah, you're right, Terry. I mean, the country was already very dependent on aid, and that's part of the problem. Many people were food dependent on the handouts that were given, and those handouts effectively stopped. When the Taliban took over, the US and NATO pulled out, foreign aid was suspended. Now, public spending in the previous government, 75% of public spending was effectively paid for by the US government and other governments. So we essentially pulled that from beneath the new government. The assets that had belonged to the old government were frozen. It's had to deal with a pandemic, and it's also, despite the snow that's now falling, in the middle of another serious drought. Afghanistan, like other countries, affected by climate change. All of these things have come together to mean that the numbers of people who are now facing food insecurity, hunger and starvation are higher than we've ever seen in the country, and the agencies are struggling to cope who are still here. And the question is, will the international community be able to come to the rescue in time to save kids like Mohammed?
Well, and now the Taliban in control there. So tell me, as a Westerner there, how is it getting around and doing the work you have to do? Are there other Western aid groups and people on the ground? Is it possible to work with the Taliban to solve this problem?
I mean, we spoke to a Taliban commander today. Certainly their messaging is, and I actually believe them, is that they are desperate for the international community to re-engage. Now, you can see why the international community doesn't want to, because they took power at the point of a gun. And because of their policies on women and girls and other areas, the international community doesn't want to recognize them. But the point that this commander made was the money that's been frozen isn't Taliban money. It isn't to go to the Taliban. It's money that belongs to the Afghan people. And he was pleading for the international community for America and others to try and re-engage, to try and release some of this funding. There are very few foreigners here now. You don't see those hundreds, thousands of foreign aid workers, security personnel, journalists here. There are a handful here. You're stopped regularly at checkpoints, but we have permission from the Taliban to be here. It's not always a welcoming committee at each checkpoint, but nevertheless we are allowed to go about our business. The Taliban have allowed us to be here to work. They're keen that the world sees what is going on here, but they're also in a state of denial. The truth is, this was an insurgency. It was never a government in waiting, and they're now faced with one of the most serious crises any government could face, and they're just not equipped to handle it.
Well, we're glad you're there to tell the story, and now to bring it home here to the United States, the status of the Americans, citizens, and U.S. allies left behind. Some wanted to stay, some have changed their mind, and there are so many people who worked with the United States and other Western nations and aid groups when the troops pulled out. What's their status? What have you been able to hear about that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as we understand it, all U.S. citizens, passport holders who wanted to leave have been safely brought out of the country. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there are significant numbers of people who worked alongside the U.S. mission, be it diplomatic or military, who were promised that they would be given safe passage out of the country to be resettled elsewhere, who've been living in hiding, still living in hiding, desperate to get out, and with no realistic prospect of having that escape route.
All right, Ian Pannell in Kabul, Afghanistan. Thanks very much for being there. Stay safe.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.